Hello, and welcome to this special Precisely session. Today, we're going to be talking about simplifying and streamlining SAP processes in non-governmental organizations. And specifically, we're going to be talking about how Precisely Automate can help you achieve better results. I'm Andrew Hayden. I'm the Principal Product Marketing Manager for the Automate products here at Precisely, and I will be your host today. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, we're going to start off talking about what I call the CIO's dilemma and the challenges that CIOs face today. Then we're going to talk about the challenges with SAP ERP systems specifically. Then we're going to get specific about the NGO challenges that you have with SAP ERP systems. We're going to follow that with some more information about Precisely Automate, and then I will just wrap it up with a little bit more information about Precisely in general. So let's get started. So when we talk about the CIO's dilemma, what we're really talking about are the complex challenges that are happening in today's business world. One of the big ones is just the overall business environment. I mean, we're in a highly disrupted environment that have many things that happen unexpectedly. And for NGOs, that can be anywhere from geopolitical changes to decisions that are made in the spur of the moment by governments. You're dealing with this whole influx and inference of AI, what AI is doing, what it can do for you, all the promises of AI, and what I describe often as the unmet promises of AI. And then for the SAP organizations, it's this whole struggle we're going through on the SAP modernization front, where most of us are going from SAP ECC to SAP S/4HANA. And as part of that, it not only is causing a lot of disruptions within our organizations, but it is also forcing us to upgrade much of our overall IT environment. And that leads to a whole series of challenges overall that we're dealing with. And this corresponds with this tension that we have between today and tomorrow, where today we've got a lot of legacy processes and legacy systems that tend to slow us down and make things more difficult. And we want to get to the state tomorrow where we're agile and able to move quickly, and we've got automation across the organization, and we have AI-ready data. So our data is no longer siloed, it's no longer fragmented, it is in a much better place. And so we're going to talk about how automation can help you literally across the board with all of these things. Now, specific to SAP, there are a number of SAP ERP challenges that we've identified over the years. And one of the biggest ones is the fact that SAP often kind of forces you to create and manage data through very specific processes. So this interdependence of process and data within an SAP environment is ongoing and constant. And the reality of it is moving from ECC to S/4HANA, it doesn't change. And one of the key things there is the complexity of the process and the complexity of doing things doesn't change. And this is something we talk to customers about day in and day out. There's a great deal of, frankly, surprise when they move to S/4HANA, and we're expecting things to be faster and easier. And what they discover is that many things haven't changed. They're exactly the same as they were in ECC. You have the same amount of data, you have the same number of processes, you have the same complexity involved in what it takes to create and manage that data. And we've been doing research with the SAP community for a number of years. And one of the things we found, and this has not changed since we started doing the research, is complexity is multidimensional, and it really breaks down into these three areas, especially when you're dealing with SAP. One is just the data. Data itself is complex in SAP, and especially in master data records. Think of something like a material record, where you have on average 300 data elements that have to be created and managed and carefully monitored to make sure that they are accurate and correct. Because if even one of them is wrong, it can send a product to the wrong place. It can create major problems downstream. And in order to create those records and manage that data, there are processes that we have to follow. And these are very complex processes within SAP. They have lots of different steps that often require you to deal with multiple people across your organization. So now you have a complexity to the organization, because different people in different departments have different priorities. They want different things. They want their data created and managed differently. And now the other organizational challenge we run into is, as you move from ECC to S/4HANA, there's often a lot of change management because you've got different interfaces that people need to go through. Or you were doing custom processes and now you're decided to go with a clean core strategy and you're doing standard SAP process. So this sense of complexity being multidimensional is pervasive, and it is persistent, whether you're, like I said, whether you're in ECC or you're in S/4HANA. So that's where we are today. CIOs are dealing with a lot of, and C-level executives and IT executives are dealing with a lot of complexities just as they migrate and as they modernize their environments. Within SAP, you have this persistence or this interdependence of process and data and persistence of complexity. So for NGOs specifically, when we did our research and as we've talked to organizations around the world, we've been able to identify a few areas where it seems like within SAP, there are certain challenges that just keep raising their head over and over. So the biggest challenge, complex and rigid processes. I talked about this before. SAP has those very specific processes. And also when you are dealing in organizations or in situations where you've got a lot of compliance that you have to follow. So those processes become even more rigid. And SAP doesn't really give you the flexibility you may need, especially when you're trying to adapt quickly to changes in program needs. You need to reallocate funds, you're adjusting budgets in response to new priorities and, humanitarian situations, disasters, things of that nature that can happen anywhere at any time. So complex and rigid processes can become a very big challenge with SAP. Manual, time-consuming data entry. So this is pervasive across SAP, but I think with NGOs where you're often dependent on manual labor, entry, things like vendor setup, projects, things of that nature, and it leads to a lot of inefficiencies, and it can slow down processes, and it can really make it more difficult to respond to an emergency situation. It increases your risk of data entry errors because, let's face it, humans are error prone when we are doing manual data entry. And one of our customers, who's a very large organization, prior to automating a process, they found that their recycle rate, that they called it, was about 30%, which meant that about a third of the time, they basically had to go back and correct manual data entry errors. So there's a lot of things that manual processes create, and they can affect a lot of different areas. You often have manual processes that are ungoverned, so there's no transparency, there's difficulty with accountability, and audit trails can be very difficult to follow. So eliminating those can be very important. We also see challenges around data silos across regions and programs. So global NGOs often operate in different, multiple regions, different countries, through different languages. You've got different currencies, lots of independent systems, and integrating those SAP systems and those SAP processes can be extremely difficult. Automating those in a unified way can really streamline and simplify a lot of those processes and give you the consistency that you often lack when you have these fragmented systems across regions and across different aspects of your organization. Challenge number 4 is just limited resources. Let's face it, we all have limited resources, and often when you are reliant on donors and donor organizations to provide you the funds, you are running with a very, very lean team. So, unlike corporate enterprises, you often have a much smaller team, smaller teams, smaller budgets. Custom SAP deployments can create challenges when you have those smaller teams, and it can make it more difficult to build integrations. And these things can be costly, they can be slow. So these limited IT resources become a bottleneck for you. And again, automation, especially low-code, no-code automation that's designed for citizen developers, can really help mitigate a lot of the challenges that you have around the smaller IT resources that you have. And then finally, compliance and audit pressures. Obviously, you're dealing with a lot of outside people who want to know where their money's going. And so being able to automate processes in a way that is traceable and trackable, and you know exactly who's touched what when, and you're able to see within that SAP process, even what's happening when and where that money is, because donors want to know. So disconnected manual processes often don't have it. Poorly governed processes can be a major problem, especially when it comes to being able to pass an audit or be able to talk through the accountability that you are required to have. It also helps to be able to show that you have these things in place, compliant, governed processes when you're looking for funding. And automation is a really great way to achieve a lot of those. And Precisely Automate is a very good way to help mitigate a lot of these challenges, actually all 5 of these challenges. So let's talk a little bit more about Precisely Automate. Who are we? What do we do? Like I mentioned, Precisely Automate, we've been automating SAP processes for over 20 years. We've been doing it for 22 years. So we are intimately familiar with how SAP works, what it does, and what it can do for you in terms of what are some of the challenges that any size organization is dealing with, and what are some of the benefits that we can deliver that can mitigate these challenges that we talked about. The basic Automate portfolio consists of these two products. We've got Automate Studio and we've got Automate Evolve. Automate Studio is really the premier Excel to SAP process automation product. So what it enables you to do is your users can work in Excel, and Excel becomes their front end for managing SAP data. So you're able to extract data out of SAP, you're able to do any kind of manipulation, any kind of management, any kind of changes within Excel, and then post it back into your SAP system, whether it's ECC or S/4HANA, it doesn't matter. And what this means is that, especially for an organization that has limited budget, limited resources, and you can't go necessarily hire highly trained SAP users, but the ubiquity of Excel means that you can often find Excel users who are able to do this very, very easily. And within Studio, as well as Excel, you're able to validate that data against SAP before you post it back into SAP. So you improve your data quality significantally while also improving governance, speeding up the process, eliminating manual data. We also have a server-side add-on for Studio called Studio Manager that gives you capabilities for managing things like scripts, so your Studio scripts, those Excel templates, licenses, user licenses, and all that kind of all those things, which you're able to do, as well as server-side job scheduling and posting. So you're able to run a job on a server as opposed to taking up a desktop. Automate Evolve is our full form and workflow platform, which means that for those complex data intensive processes like an account creation, things of that nature, which often require lots of different data from multiple sources to either be created or input or reviewed, Evolve is the perfect platform for that. And what Evolve gives you is these role-based forms. So each individual in the process is able to receive a form that is just for them. So it's either they're going to review the data that's in there, they're going to input data in there, they're going to validate it against SAP. And as soon as they've input their data, it either moves in parallel or in sequentially to the next person in line, or you can have all the different people inputting data at the same time, reviewing data at the exact same time. So you can do it all in parallel. As soon as that data is all received and those forms are filled out, you have somebody on your master data team who's going to review it, make sure it's all correct, and then post it directly into SAP to create that record. So both of these together really give you a huge amount of power. And if you get Evolve, you also get Studio. So the kinds of things you can do, if you've got a product launch or product data management that you need to do, some materials, things of that nature, customer onboarding, vendor onboarding, you might think of customer donor onboarding, same thing. Asset management, if you've got a lot of assets that you're moving around, whether they are capital assets or whether they are mobile assets. So maybe you've got a number of things that you move from location to location and you need to be able to track where it is and who's there and what equipment is in it. This is a great way to be able to do it. Financial master data, obviously, being able to have your highly governed finance processes in place, especially for things like GL accounts, very important. And then obviously, if you're moving from ECC to S/4HANA, what we know is that a lot of systems integrators are really only helping with the technical upgrade, so with the application itself. If you want to move data and migrate data from ECC to S/4HANA, often they won't do it for you. We have tools that can help you do that. Studio is a great tool within Precisely, the combination of Studio and Precisely's Data 360 Analyze, where we can not only do data transformation if you're moving data from lots of different systems into a common S/4HANA instance, but also you can do, so you've got the data transformation, you can also improve your data quality, you can do all your checks, and you can rationalize that data so that what's in your S/4HANA system is as accurate and correct as possible. So you know that when you go in and look at your new S/4HANA system, your data is correct from day one. Now, specifically for NGOs, what are we going to help you do? Well, help you streamline those SAP workflows without coding. Again, this is a no-code, low-code platform. So many of our customers rely on citizen developers to be able to create and deploy automation locally. So often what we'll see is you can have a core IT team that may do the development on the complex data-intensive processes in Evolve, but a lot of the simpler Evolve processes and Studio processes are developed by citizen developers in the field, or even just at our SAP user groups within your various business and organizations and departments. So we can streamline those SAP workflows without coding. It's very simple. Data accuracy and transparency, obviously making sure that your data is accurate, like I mentioned earlier. So we have that ability not only to eliminate manual data entry, but we have that ability to validate the data. And then if you are migrating data either from ECC to S4HANA or from other systems into S4HANA, I mentioned earlier the Studio and Data 360 Analyze from Precisely that can deliver that high quality data you need into your S4HANA system. Speed up grant and project management. So, simplifying repetitive SAP transports and master data updates, budget adjustments, all of those things that can be so important to your donors, to your benefactors who are looking to make sure that their money is being spent wisely. This gives you a way to track and deliver compliant processes and auditing or auditable workflows that give them confidence to be able to continue donating to your organization. Flexible, scalable operations. Obviously, you're going to scale up and you're going to scale down depending on what it is, what the challenge is that you're dealing with. What is the crisis that is in the moment, and you need to scale up quickly. Obviously, like I said, with Studio, you can use Studio to manage SAP data. You don't have to go out and go to some place and find a whole lot of SAP users in a locale, because that's where your problem is and that's where you need to be able to manage the data. And then collaboration between teams. So Evolve, because of the way the workflows operate, it enables multiple teams to be part of those complex workflows. So when you're talking about, like I said, managing donors, managing materials, managing articles, managing all of capital assets, all of the things that often require different teams to be involved, we can help you do that. We can help you streamline that process and simplify it for your organization in ways that are going to really drive benefits to the people that you are trying to help. So a couple of examples of where we've helped enterprises, but if you think about it, the beauty of SAP is that whether it's an enterprise or whether it's an NGO, in many cases the challenges are the same. SAP creates the same set of challenges. There was an energy drinks company that had a highly manual process for creating new products. Think of it as product data management. And what they were able to do was automate that process and streamline it significantly. So for them, it was the ability to get a new product out the door very quickly. They cut their time to market in half, while at the same time expanding globally. So they were adding supply chains, they were adding new customer organizations, they were adding new vendors, things of that nature. Think about how often it is you've got manual processes that slow you down. In their case, literally, they cut that time in half, but they also got repeatable processes that were fully governed, whereas previously they were very ungoverned, very manual. They eliminated most of their manual data entry. Reduction in the time and cost to just make simple materials changes. As simple as materials or changes, whether it's a material or an article, in SAP can be very time consuming. And so this is a manufacturer that had just one single simple change. And to make that one single simple change was going to be very expensive. So per 100 items, it was going to cost about $4,500 because it was going to take 60 hours. It was going to require them to hire outside help doing this all manually. And when they automated it using Studio, what they found is that they were able to cut that time down to 5 hours. They could do it with their existing staff. So how many of those simple processes do you have in your organization that could benefit from being able to automate and cut that amount of time and eliminate not only the manual data entry, but again, it improved their data quality. It gave them a repeatable process that was highly governed. 97% reduction in the time to create a new customer. Large organization, if you think about it, would be the same way with a donor. If you've got a lot of donors and it takes you a long time to create a donor, in their case, it took them 144 hours. This is a highly sophisticated global organization. 144 hours. So basically, it took them 3 weeks. Once they automated that process, it took them 6 hours, less than a day. So they went from 3 weeks to less than a day. And they also got, again, higher data quality. They were able to eliminate that manual data entry. And they cut that time. So they improved their customer satisfaction. In your case, it could be a donor satisfaction. And then an 87% reduction in the time needed to qualify vendors and materials. And so I think this one kind of reverberates across any organization that has critical materials or critical items that they need to acquire from vendors. worldwide. And if you're trying to validate and qualify a new vendor for items that you are going to distribute, you want to make sure they're accurate and correct. And this company did it when they were doing it manually. It took about 2.5 years, which is just a crazy amount of time. So if they did that now, they were still using that process now, they basically would tell somebody, hey, I'll get back to you in 2028. And that's not acceptable when you need things to move fast. When you're in critical time dependent situations where you need to be able to identify and be able to address a situation quickly, they got that time from 2.5 years to 3 months. Now, 3 months may still be a little longer than you want, but hopefully you're not taking 2.5 years. So the ability to significantly cut that amount of time when you are looking for a vendor in a critical situation to supply critical materials or critical items that you need to be able to turn around and redistribute back to refugees or something of that nature, this is what automation can do. So that's a studio use case where they were able to cut that time significantly. Now, what this gives you, what Precisely Automate gives you, is this very unique set of features within the SAP space. So flexible, agile automation for all SAP master data use cases. So one thing we're not a point solution. We work across the entire SAP landscape, whether it's ECC or S/4HANA, no matter what module it is, no matter what kind of an item, article, or T code you're talking about. We work across that entire landscape. So buy us once and you can use us just about anywhere. Interdependence of process and data. I mentioned that. And it's something we're intimately aware of. We understand how SAP works, and we're able to really help you manage those two things. You need to be able to create and manage your SAP data in a very specific way. We're able to streamline that process, as I've talked about and shown you through some of those examples. If you've got issues with address validation, location, geolocation, any of those things, Precisely has an integrated location and data intelligence API that comes with Evolve. So we can help you when you're creating a record for a location. We can give you very specific information about it. And so you can map and understand what's happening in very specific places. And then if you're really trying to understand kind of your overall data strategy, we do have a data strategy consulting group that is brand neutral. So it doesn't matter whether the best solution is going to be a Precisely solution or from somebody else. They're very good and extremely experienced with SAP to be able to help you work through that. So that is what Precisely Automate is able to do for you as a non-governmental organization. We believe very firmly that we have the best solution to be able to help simplify and streamline those complex data-intensive SAP processes that you've got, which are often challenging, difficult, vexing, pick a word, for organizations. And we have a way to be able to do it that uses that no-code, low-code platform and citizen developers to not only enable you to develop those things, but enable users anywhere in your organization to work in streamlined ways without having to learn SAP. So we believe very firmly that we can help you, and we can help you achieve your mission and your goals much more efficiently and much more effectively. So in addition to Precisely Automate, Precisely overall is the leader in data integrity. So we have software that helps you ensure accuracy and unlock those hard to access data with end-to-end data integrity and lifecycle capabilities beyond just SAP across all of your systems, from governance and quality to location, as I mentioned, mainframe optimization, all those things. We have data that we also have available for you for data enrichment if you need things around, as I mentioned earlier, addresses, geolocation, things of that sort. And we also do have those consulting services. So if you want more information, please check us out at precisely.com. There you can find lots more information. You can find white papers, case studies, product information, demos, anything you need to really learn more about what Precisely can do for you and for your organization to help you achieve your mission overall. And finally, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I know your time is valuable, and I definitely appreciate that you have chosen to spend that time with us. And I hope everyone has a happy and healthy day. Thank you very much. Bye.